Really? I haven't heard good.
Okay, I'm going to call the BMR District School Committee meeting for August 22nd to order. We're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we will move to introduction of members.
I'm Steve Tringali from Millville.
Mike Buckley from Blackstone.
Diane Robin, Blackstone.
Brian Faulkner, Millville.
Kathy Robinson, Millville.
Wendy Greenstein, Blackstone.
Erin Banaco, Millville.
Bill Chaplin, Blackstone.
Dr. Perry Davis, the interim superintendent of schools.
Great. So we have consent agenda A in front of us. Looking for approval of warrants, use of school facilities, field trips, and minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Robbins, seconded by Ms. Vanaco.
Are we
Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, are we covering the proposed field trip?
It is in here, so
Okay,
if
so
we
we
want to
probably
discuss
wanna
that, we can absolutely
Discuss that before we take the vote?
Which one?
Mr. Cameron, the middle school principal, in your packet is a request for a field trip. It is an overnight field trip, and there was a flyer from the Nature's Classroom located in Charlton, Massachusetts, and Mr. Cameron is here to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman, Superintendent, everybody has this in their packet?
Yes.
Okay, great. You know, full disclosure, to start off, this is clearly a last-minute kind of opportunity and proposal. I connected over this past summer with Dr. Santos, who's the executive director of all the Nature's Classrooms across New England. You know, he's a salesman. I was talking about a proposed trip for fall of 2014. I see a lot of benefit of a sixth grade going in fall in terms of a chance for the two towns that are coming together here in the regional middle school, a chance to bond both with their teachers and their staff and with each other. He certainly was interested in having a conversation about fall 2014, but he was intently interested in sharing with me, you know, numbers, figures, prices for fall of this current school year. I did share with him and engaged in a conversation about, you know, one night. You know, he was pretty stubborn about a 2-night, 3-day, but I said if there's any way, you know, I was going to move forward with this and propose it in front of the school committee, the price point has to be the lowest possible price point. He has basically discounted for each student between $45 and $50 if we were to take the trip in the fall. He cannot guarantee that price point for the spring. So if this is a committee's recommendation to, you know, possibly look at this present 6th grade taking the trip, but not in the fall, in fact, not even on September 23rd, I'm fine with that. It's just I want to make sure it's in the disclosure that the price would then go up. Do we have an opportunity to, you know, fundraise? Sure, we do, you know, and try to get that price point right around the $100 mark, which does include transportation, this proposal here.
So if we didn't do it in September, is there a possibility of it happening in spring, or are we into 2014?
I think there's a real possibility of it happening in the spring. It's just the price would, you know, increase about $40 to $45.
So would it be identical? Would it be one evening, one overnight?
Yes, I like to unpack things like this very, very slowly. So see how it is. Certainly, that would give us an advantage of, you know, me and the science teachers going there and observing a school there. With that said, I helped lead a trip like this for 10 years in the Southborough Northborough School District. It was to the Stone Environmental Camp, very similar. And certainly, if we were to move forward with the fall, you know, I would go out there before the 23rd. In fact, before meeting with parents, just to talk about the campus and the facilities and, you know, the academic activities and such.
The cost to the students would be $100. I'm just concerned with, you know, parents getting ready for school and things like that. And if you have 2 or 3 kids to come up with $100 and 2 or 3, it might be difficult for some and little short notice for saving or fundraising.
Absolutely. In fact, you know, my I lost track of how many times I said no in terms of fall 2013. You know, when he discounted down to about $100 mark, when, you know, the original price, and I believe what other districts are going at it, like 160, 165 for just the one-night trip. And then when he put in, and this is in the packet, he is absolutely fine with parents paying the majority of this cost well after the kids take the trip. So he is absolutely fine with families without going through any sort of eligibility, going right into a payment plan where they'd be paying, you know, $50 a month for the next, you know, 4 or 5 months. The free and reduced lunch students are, of course, mine, nothing that would be shared with him, but those students would be covered pretty much 100%.
Okay, thank you.
I have actually 2 questions. One, the person that you spoke with, did he give you an idea of what the other surrounding towns are doing? Because I'm noticing that this is around MCAS, so I'm thinking, or are these MCAS questions that are on?
This is a packet I put together. I just
Okay.
embedded in MCAS questions.
Oh, okay. Trip to, maybe it's the one that he had given us that I'm looking at. Are the surrounding schools taking it in the spring, or are they going in the fall?
There's 2 schools of thought. I would say the spring, from what he told me, is a little harder to get in, and that's why I don't think he's, you know, as interested in discounting even a first-time school. I will say, though, if I go to him, I will remind him of, you know, much like the DC partnership, you know, I'm looking to possibly build a tradition here in the district. And not that, you know, we're looking for a bait and switch kind of thing, but, you know, the first year's price should be the most competitive there is.
And in your opinion, discount or no discount, when do you think the best time to take this sort of trip with these kids? When do you think it would be? Would it be better
in the fall?
Really? Can you explain why?
Yeah, absolutely. For reasons of the 2 towns coming together at the regional, you know, we're a regional middle school, as you know. I, for 10 years, took it with the 6th grade, and this was not in a regionalized middle school, and the opportunity for the adults who would go on this trip that work within here, the middle school, to connect and to learn about the kids, and the parents and community members that would also come as chaperones. You build a bond, you're laughing about those stories 2 years later in 8th grade, and those stories are shared in a memory packet when the students are at the farewell dance, you know, 2.5 years later.
So you're looking at this trip as building a culture for the kids coming in?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You know, and with the mention of MCAS, you know, we're about 5 months before MCAS. So
Right.
certainly we would ground them in terms of, as I did here in the packet, how a field experience can connect to a question with a paper and pencil. However, you know, teachers aren't saying, this is wonderful, let's say the ELA teacher, this is wonderful, but, you know, my kids are going to be taking the reading MCAS in a couple weeks, because that's what happens in the spring. Because I'm sure he would throw me a couple weeks that he is available, spring 2014, for this present 6th grade class. I can almost guarantee you it
Could
would be
be
during
real
MCAS.
close.
So there is a chance, just, you know, for me to say, there is a chance that the availability might not be there for spring.
No, I was just trying to get an idea, is this a cultural, you know, building a culture, or is this more geared towards, and I think you answered my question, so,
Yeah,
thank you.
okay. You're welcome.
I just, are the teachers who have conversations with the science teachers, is that who would be chaperoning and going on this trip? And are they on board with the overnight and the?
Yeah, they've been shared that this proposal was going in front of all of you, and they're excited about it. You know, Washington, D.C., I felt like, with the blessing of this committee, we broke some really nice ground. And as much as parents really wanted to be a part of that trip, there wasn't so much a real need to extend past the walls of this building. And, you know, new teacher orientation was today, so I had 2 mentors who came together who were both Washington, D.C. chaperones, and the first thing they said to each other was, you know, a story about Washington, D.C. So the staff, you know, bonding is something second to none as well. So yeah, I'm fairly certain that most of the 6th grade staff, except for those who are going to be planning for those activities for the students who aren't going to choose to go, because that's important as well, to have familiar staff for those students and families who might not decide to go here. And then this is a trip a little different from DC. where we're only about 45 minutes away, that I would like to offer more of an opportunity for parents and guardians to come and be a part of it. There's no DC would have a cost to it, whereas they could either jump on one of our buses or, it's 45 minutes away, which is actually better than the 10 years that I took it with the Southborough School District. We were about 2.5 hours away.
Okay, thank you.
Erin, go ahead.
I don't see anything about the overnight accommodations. Is it included in the price of the
Oh, yeah.
115? And
Yes, it is.
What are they?
Food, too. I think it's a quad room with private bathrooms. There are 2 campuses in the Charleston. It is their headquarters. Dr. Santos calls Charlton home. It's the less rustic of the other campuses. The other one that is a little further away is Groton, Massachusetts. And I think they built that campus and those grounds are like from the 1940s. So that's the other thing that, there's just some stars that align that, made me propose this to Dr. Davis and to all of you. So it's a quad. I believe each has its own bathroom. There would be a couple staff or chaperones on each floor.
I mean, I'm a parent of a 6th grader, so, I think it's a great beginning point, no matter when we do it. And I'd like to see it expand to, a couple of nights or 3. I know Milford, my niece and nephew's been going for years, and they go for a whole week at a cost. It's $500 or $600, I think. But I've been asking for this for years, so I think it's a good beginning point. So, yes.
I actually participated in a similar trip to this. We went to Camp Borndale in Bourne, and we took 5th graders for 4 nights. And we did that, I think, 3 or 4 years in a row. And the first year was great, but the four nights got to wear on the staff and the students. So I think one night is a good, stick your toe in the water kind of thing. That's not a bad way to go. The other thing is, did he give you the date of the 23rd, 24th?
Yes.
Because I would just imagine a camp like this, he's probably not booked like the first week of September,
Right.
second. So you might want to explore how far into the year you can go and still get your discount. Or how about the same thing on the other end? We actually did our trip in March. This was pre-MCAS, so it was not a factor then, but.
I get, since you brought that up, I believe the discounted price, if we were to consider, like week before Thanksgiving, still the fall.
Yeah.
I think he would be open for that conversation.
But just doing that, they'll give you a little more prep time for meetings and possible fundraising,
It sure
things
does.
like that.
But just like Washington, D.C., I knew that if I didn't have good weather, as much as we structured, planned, the academics were there, people were going to come back and said that was a miserable trip. So that's when I saw when he said September 23rd, I was like, ooh, that does not give a lot of time. The financial piece was really, and that's where he talked about families paying even into January. He said as long as his business model is as long as they're still in the current school year, he will chase, not me. He will chase, and once the summer comes around, very candidly, I don't know if he likes me to say this on the record, but he just takes a loss in terms of not chasing kids anymore, or not kids obviously, but parents.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, it was a great program, it really was, and you're right about memories. That the staff amongst ourselves talk about, remember the time, things like that. You don't get a whole lot of sleep those nights.
No.
But
No.
so by the 3rd, 4th night, it were pretty ragged. So I think one night's not a bad way to go. But again, just try to push the date a little bit more. I understand it's a time to bond and come together, but that might be too quick.
Yeah, to be honest though, I think it really is September 23rd. Or the week before Thanksgiving, in which case, I'm a little concerned about, parents and families saying, that might be a little too rustic. Because as because you've been on a trip like this, we're outside a good portion,
Yeah,
even
exactly.
even in the evening. The evening activities are outside as well.
It would be great if this was an ongoing thing. So in 5th grade, you might start talking about it, and maybe fundraising and doing whatever to be ready to go in the following September.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you have to start somewhere though. But
That's why I came to you in the spring to talk to this past spring 7th grade parents about the 8th grade Washington D.C. trip. So yeah, certainly, even if this trip isn't, we don't move forward in this trip, you know, the fifth grade visit, I'm hoping will include, you know, some information, and a fifth grade parent informational night would happen sometime in the late spring.
Just to close the circle, you got anything for the other grade in the pipeline?
It's funny you say that, because in the middle school that I grew up in professionally, the sixth grade did Stone Environmental Camp, the eighth grade did DC, and I was the seventh grade team leader. And I used to say that to my principal all the time, what about us? We went to Ferry Beach a couple of years. That was our overnight towards kind of the end of my tenure. And the sixth grade in Southborough evolved from going for 4 nights, like you said, the whole grade going for 4 nights, to the grade was in 2 teams, like our sixth grade presently is, and the first sixth grade team went for like a night, you know, 2 days, and then the second team went for a night and 2 days. So it's an opportunity where we are team-based like Southborough for some team bonding as well. I would say the first couple of years, though, for the sake of the staff coming together and getting a good sense of what the trip is all about, you know, proposing it for the entire grade is what I'm comfortable moving forward with.
Anyone else?
You know, to follow up on that, I know that Hopedale, the sixth grade goes, they have gone for about 20 years, probably a lot like the Milford thing. They go for the whole week. It is really built as a bonding and team building experience. I believe that they go to Charlton as well, which is fairly new. I believe the newer
One of the
campus.
2, I think it was built in like 2001.
Yeah, and that's they used to go to the older one, and then like they said, it was more rustic, and then this is has a little bit more amenities, but it's a good experience. And but they do, you know, it's kind of an expected thing. You know, they prepare for it, you know, through fundraising and stuff prior to that. You know, it's a if you look back in our history, in the 5th grade before this building opened, the Millville 5th graders used to go to Alton Jones in South Kingstown, Rhode Island. Joan DeRocha, who was a member of the staff here for many years, was the science teacher in Millville, and they would all go off for, I think it was like 2 overnights. And same idea, kind of rustic living in like these kind of cabins, you know, quad setups, and that was very well accepted. And then in Millville in those days, the 6th grade would go to DC as well with Everett. So you know, there's been past there's been past practice here, as well as, you know, I think it's a good idea to especially give them something to shoot for, especially in 6th grade starting off. It's a new school. I think that's a good idea. So.
Steve just pulled up the website. The place is the Palace. In Charlton.
That's not so bad.
It's not so bad. It's not that rustic.
Sign you up, Steve?
Okay, any other discussion?
Lethbridge Barnum School will be going.
Yeah, really, I'm all over that.
Okay, so hearing none, all those in favor? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nays? Abstentions? Unanimous. Okay.
Good luck putting that
Thank you, Mr.
together.
Cameron.
Great luck. Thank you,
You're
Mr.
under
Cameron.
the time.
If you could sign that.
Thank you, everybody.
Next on the agenda is consent agenda B, which is approval of homeschooling requests.
Thank you.
So I'll be looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Steve Tringali. Wendy seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Nay?
Nay.
Abstentions? Okay, passes. Our first public forum. So if anybody in the audience would like to come up and discuss anything with the committee, we do have a second one at the end of the meeting, so feel free to do that. Seeing none, I will move on. Appointments.
Members of the committee, in your packet, I've given you a personnel update, and listed our 41 new people to the district. These aren't necessarily, there's only one new position, your extended school year director, Nadine Carter. The rest are the result of resignations, retirements. My name is on there, coming in as the interim superintendent. So we had 41 in, and we had 40 exit. I just want to call your attention to the high school. Mr. Dudek has been extremely busy this year. Just a large number of faculty at the high school having to replace. They're through retirements or people leaving the district to go to other positions in other districts, closer to home or to districts that were paying more. So he had a number of late resignations. I started on August 1st, and it seemed like every time I saw him, he had another expression of telling me somebody had just resigned. And in some cases, he actually had candidates that had agreed to take the position, and a week later called back and said, no, I'm not taking the position. So he had to actually fill a position twice. So he's had a very busy summer, as well as JFK. Carol Brown has had a busy summer. So, any questions? The one other item that I included in the memo is, given this much staff movement, I've asked Ms. Scungio to conduct a fiscal analysis, financial analysis of our personnel accounts, and to do that by the end of September. So at our first meeting in October, I can say that the principals generally hired at the same dollar amount as the person going out. They were very aware of the budget limitations, but Donna will do an analysis, and we'll talk about the impact in September. The other line item is, of course, looking not only at the salaries, but also looking at health insurance. So, for your information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question. The few positions that are still, are there already candidates?
Yes.
And they'll be in place by the first day, or?
We had a late resignation on a school nurse at the high school, so we're going to have to fill that with a floating nurse, and then probably hire in a substitute nurse. Nursing is getting difficult to fill because it's not only does the person have to be a registered nurse, but they must meet state licensure standards from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, which requires at a minimum a bachelor's in nursing. So the candidate pool, people sometimes have a bachelor's degree, but it's not in nursing, and they have an associate's degree and an RN. That does not meet the standard for the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. So
Bless you.
that's a little problematic to do that. But yes, that was a late resignation, and the high school had a special education teacher just told us yesterday that he wasn't coming. So we are in the process of rehiring for a vacant position there. But the kindergarten's position at, let's see, Brian's name's on there, at JFK, yeah, that's filled. So I think we're good
Okay.
at the elementary level. Thank you.
Update on the assistant superintendent position.
Just to call to the
Can we just, one question on the personnel, if I may? Just, we're going to look at why, maybe some of the, we had off-record conversations, just bringing that back up, is that it's just a discussion about, why we lost some of these people, especially late in the year or late in the summer.
I've met with all 4 administrators as part of the leadership team. We've had 2 meetings, and I would have to say that the consensus, other than the ones that retired that I think the committee is aware of, it was a matter of staff finding another job closer to where they live, or finding another job that, quite frankly, was paying more than we were paying. So it just seemed to be an inordinate amount of people. There was, I think, at the high school, there might have been 1 relocation because of a spouse. But that was done by the principals, not me. When I hit the office on August 1st, this was pretty well in motion. But yes, the principals did talk with the person that was leaving. The nurse, for example, left to go to Worcester, and principally closer to home and money to go to the Worcester Public Schools.
Okay.
So
Thank you,
they did ask, but yes, in the future we would have a more formal exit. But I really have to credit the principals. They did take the initiative to talk with their people,
Great.
and a couple of the people that left had only been here 1 or 2 years. So they were somewhat disappointed that they were leaving. The next item on the agenda is just an update on the assistant superintendent's position. I was notified last Friday that Dr. Kirsten Esposito Balboni notified the school district that she is declining the position. So at this point, there is no candidate under contract for the position of Assistant Superintendent. So in the memo that I provided you, I'm looking to the committee for direction as to how to proceed. I see that you have 3 options. Do you want me to return to the original pool of candidates to possibly reconsider if there was any candidates still available? I'm concerned about availability. Do you want to start a new posting for the position, reconvene the search committee and get started? Or do you wish me to consider an interim candidate for the school year? And I just need direction as to how you want me to proceed.
Any discussion? I have a question in terms of when we went through our process, we didn't have a superintendent in place. So technically, this is your recommendation, and then we appoint. So,
Correct.
Just to clarify that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Any other discussion?
Are you looking for an answer tonight? Okay.
Right now, there are 2 offices, and I kind of run between the 2. That's not good. You know, like today, I had to do the new teacher orientation and induction program, because that was previously done by Kim and Shaverhood and Kay Tessier, who's the director of curriculum. And, you know, I found out about that my 3rd day on the job, so I had to put that together for the new teachers and staff. So I just need, you know, some direction.
What is your recommendation?
Yeah, I think the committee needs to consider the fact that you're going to be going out and looking for a new superintendent, and you may want to consider an interim for this year so that the new superintendent has the ability to be engaged in hiring the assistant. That's an option.
I just had a question on, even as an interim position, would you recommend starting the pool over? Is there anything that you've gotten into your position that you would say, gee, I think the assistant, this should be in their job description, or they should have that? I mean, would you want to change anything in?
I have collected some position descriptions, and that will be, you know, part of the process if you're asking me to go out and do a search, that I bring back to the committee at a meeting in December and say, this is what I think should be the duties of the assistant superintendent and the duties of the superintendent, just so that it's much clearer in everybody's mind what the, if you will, the segregation of duties, because the skill set can be different.
Right.
There are many people that are very good at curriculum, instruction, and assessment. They have no desire to be the superintendent of schools, all right? But their passion is curriculum, assessment, and instruction. If that's what we're looking for, then we should go out and look for that type of a candidate, because I think that presents a pool. On the other hand, you know, if it's a more generic position, you know, I would like the input of the committee on those position descriptions. I'm just thinking of, you know, I'm here as an interim. I'm here through the end of this school year. And you're going to be actively hiring, you know, and going through the process to hire a superintendent. Hopefully that'll be somebody named in the spring, so that person, you may want to consider that person having the ability to work with me to do the hiring for the assistant.
Well, it would make sense to me that
Yeah.
doing the new search with your guidelines of
Yeah.
to what you're looking
Yeah.
for to fit whatever you need that to fit for this year. And there may be new candidates out there that didn't apply last time. I mean,
Good point. Any other discussion?
Yeah.
Aaron, sorry.
I feel if we were going to start a new search, I do feel like the right thing to do would be to at least reach out to, not necessarily all the candidates, but, you know, there were a few finalists, and I think the right thing to do would be to at least touch base with the one other candidate that we,
Move forward.
you know, just to see where we would stand with them.
I do believe she
Instead of-
took another job.
yeah, she did. I had asked that
Right.
she took something.
She may have, I'm sure she did, but
Mm.
I just.
I would kind of echo what you're saying. I'm looking at our 3 possible options. Original pool of candidates, I think we narrowed it down to the 3 finalists. And technically, I think
Yeah,
what
we
I've
only had
heard,
two, right? Two.
none of them are still available.
Mm.
So 1 is basically out. You know, option 1's basically out. New posting?
How big is that pool right now?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would somewhat question people's kind of integrity if they're going to leave. A really solid candidate is going to leave a solid position early in September.
But the other candidate we had made it very clear that this would have been her first choice, so.
Yeah.
I think if we,
I'm a little uncomfortable reaching out to her and saying, hey, now, oh, by the way, our
No.
first choice left. Could you please come back now? I mean, she's probably going to say, what do you know? I mean, and she was very clear that she was going to, if this wasn't going to be available, then she was taking another job, which, good for her,
Right.
I mean, I think, along with what Steve's saying and what Perry said, we have to put a little bit of energy towards finding a permanent superintendent. And it might make sense, looking at an interim candidate, maybe a retired person or whoever, that could help with the load this year. And then move forward once we're settled with the permanent. If we can do that in the spring, there's no reason why that permanent and Perry could open up that search and find the next assistant superintendent.
Just so that the public's aware, when does this type of search, looking for an assistant superintendent, when does that normally take place?
The normal pattern used to be that these positions, because they're 12-month, July 1 to June 30, typically it's the spring for a July 1 date.
Right.
I do have to be honest with you, that has somewhat changed because the positions are more fluid. So you are seeing searches now almost any time during the year.
Okay.
To be honest. So, the old paradigm, was, as you were saying, Steve, somebody had a position, they stayed in it, and the logical place to move
At
was.
least to get the other side of Christmas.
Right.
Get the year up and running.
So,
Right.
it's changed.
Okay.
It has changed.
I mean, there are good windows, I think,
Yeah.
And I think just so that the
Yeah.
public's aware of, a typical search,
Right.
when it would normally take
Yep.
place, and this wouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
in terms of timing, right before school, would this be a
Right.
typical time to search for
Yeah.
an assistant superintendent?
The concern I have is we'd have two interims then, and we know both are leaving. So now we're back to square one next year with a new superintendent and a new assistant superintendent that are new to the district. So that concerns me a little bit, if you have the assistant in here kind of working under you with the expectation that she knows the system, she knows the people and such. Now it's going to be two new people. He or she. No, he or she.
But I mean,
But, I mean,
but I
that-
think the
that-
flip side of that coin is what Perry said. Sometimes the superintendent wants to come in and hire and we talked about that too. I think we just
Yeah, I know.
we just felt compelled to kind of get things moving back in May and June.
I'd like to see one position
Well,
consistent.
and to follow that up is that when we had launched the assistant, that was before the superintendent had stated her intentions. So we were along those lines, and we obviously made some adjustments, and we're here. But once again, I would have to say that, how narrow is the field, the availability field now, given today's the 22nd of August, and anyone that echoing what I was saying, Steve, is anyone with the integrity is working, is not going to say, hey, oh, by the way, I got this great opportunity to go down the road here, and best of luck. So, I'd ask you, Dr. Perry, what's the bench strength look like as far as potential interims? You're, close to.
I honestly, I'd have to make a couple of calls and see who's out and available.
Okay.
Superintendent's Association, keeps track of people that are interested in doing this, as does MASC out there, as well as people that I've worked over the years that I know are retired, and I could reach out to them. I just want to also say, if you go out and search, the search would be a minimum of almost 2 months, because you'd have to do the posting, you'd have to have a search committee, it's, the turnaround is, in my estimation, at best, 6 weeks, probably 8 weeks. So even if going out for somebody, you have to plan, to cover that gap. We've already gone July and August without somebody in that position. So it's a matter of accepting that reality. And I'm not suggesting that that an interim, because even an interim, I would have to recommend that person to you, and that would probably take a couple of 3 weeks to do that. All right?
If we were going out for an interim, and I think we've kind of talked about a lot of our requirements are more in the curriculum area. would we need an actual assistant superintendent? Could we go, if there was an interim out there that didn't have that license, but was a retired curriculum person for an interim?
That
I'm just-
certainly would be flexible, yeah. Would be flexible, I mean, yeah, I
Do we
certainly,
need to stick with that license if we don't really need it?
it, I think we'd have the flexibility to do that.
I think that's one of the reasons why we had looked at the change in the position, was that not only for the curriculum piece, but also to broaden those responsibilities.
When we
you
go
know,
for the
the-
permanent position, I'm just saying if it's an interim to get us through,
Yeah.
if there was somebody really good out there that had the curriculum piece, but not an assistant superintendent license, that
Right.
was.
I mean, you raise a good point. There could be a retired principal out there who doesn't have the credential as superintendent, but they could be very compatible for this position. I would come back to the committee and, report who might be available, and you could be flexible on the licensure on that.
No, I think we got to get going.
Yeah.
We got to move.
That's 3 months as it is.
And I
curriculum.
agree, I think that the interim is the right route.
Can I make a motion?
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to consider an interim candidate for the position for the 2013-2014 school year.
Motion made by Wendy, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mike. Any other further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 I will draft up some information. I'll make some calls, and I'll be able to report to you at the next meeting. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Subcommittee reports. So the committee met and broke off into groups just to inform the public before this meeting to do some planning for the subcommittee reports that we have. Right now, our subcommittees are strategic planning with Diane and Brian. Policy review, all of us are going to be working on that throughout the year. Regionalization agreement is Wendy and Erin and Kathy. Public relations is Mike B. And myself. Budget fiscal FY15 ad hoc advisory is Mike, Steve, and myself and Erin. And then facility review in terms of capital projects and so forth, facilities, Diane, Brian, and Kathy are going to be working on it. So hopefully the goal is going to be, starting in September, we're going to start reporting on those, where we're at. But I think at this point, we're just designing, kind of backward designing, where we want to be a year from now in each of those categories. So those will definitely be things we'll talk about in the coming months. Moving forward, report of the superintendent.
The first item on the report of the superintendent is an update on the Blackstone Complex roof project. In your packet is a memo. We had a meeting with the architect, the project management team, and Brian Neely from Gale Associates. The Gale Associates was hired not by you, but they were hired by MSBA. They had to conduct what is called a commissioning. That is, they took the preliminary design and specifications from Wolf and Associates, and they went through it. I attached that just so you kind of see what the MSBA requires, and this is their report, line by line, of questions that they had about the design. So we had a meeting this past week, and all of the issues that were raised by Gale Associates were addressed by Maury Wolf from DeMarisi and Wolf Architects, and that was resolved. We have placed the ad as of yesterday, the 21st, in the Central Register, and the legal ad went in the Woonsocket Call, which is required. We have a pre-bid conference at the complex next week on Thursday, the 28th of August. That's for the bidders, potential bidders, to come and see the building, walk the roof, and they'll be coming in the afternoon at 3 o'clock. We scheduled that. So if teachers are in fixing their rooms, they'll be up on the roof without anybody around. Then there will be a file sub-bid opening on Friday, September 6th. File sub-bids are the subcontractors for plumbing, we don't have air conditioning, but the mechanical system work that has to be done, and the trim work that has to be done on the roof. Those will be opened, and we have to review those. The architect and the project manager will review those, and we take the lowest bidder. And then the following week, the general contract bids will be open on the 13th. And hopefully, we'll get a sufficient number of bidders, good pricing, and then be able to recommend an award to the school committee to do that. We are obviously talking about a roof project being done while school is in session, and we are very concerned about school safety and health issues. The project manager company is on board. They will have somebody on site as part of the project, and we will be meeting. I'll be meeting with the faculty and staff with Carol Brown, and Carol will be attending all of our project meetings, which will be held at the school. We're also going to ask a member of the faculty to be selected by the faculty to attend that meeting as well, so that a member of the faculty and the principal and the superintendent are there to hear how the project is going to progress. Generally, what will happen is they will roof approximately 4 to 6 classrooms a day, and we have the ability at the complex to move 4 to 6 teachers. They will be out of that room, all right, for no more than 3 days, barring weather conditions, and they will be ripping the roof in the first thing in the morning, laying down the material over the decking, and then putting the roofing material on to do that. And we should be able to accomplish that, as I said, in 4 to 6 classroom segments. The common areas, specifically the cafeteria, we will be requiring the contractor, the successful bidder, to do that on a Saturday or a day that the school is not in session, so that, you don't have to try to relocate that, for obvious reasons. The one advantage of the complex is that we're dealing with tongue and groove decking, so they're not ripping off to the open classroom. They're only ripping back to the decking, and then they put down material that's adhered to the decking, and then they put the membrane roof on top of that. This is an not a ballasted roof, so we're not putting any rocks back on the roof, and it's also not any kind of tar. There will be no tar on the project. There is no tar on the project. But as anybody that's ever had a roof done at home, it's noisy, and there will be some dust. The contractor and the specifications will be required to cover all of the teachers in the students' materials. Obviously, when they relocate them, you can't empty the classroom, right? Carol did send out an email to her faculty saying, please consider that your room is going to be re-roofed in October or November, and if you have materials that you don't need right away, don't unpack them. Leave them in a box. If you don't need to do that bulletin board till Thanksgiving, please wait, and that'll help tremendously. So the rooms at the complex may not look as nice for parent open house, but Carol, she will explain why. It'll be obvious, but we will explain why. The roofing contractor will be moving around the classrooms, obviously, and obviously we'll know approximately 2 weeks in advance what the schedule is going to be. They will be staging in the back of the building. Materials for this project are not extensive, but we will be staging in the back, and Carol is going to relocate a recess for upper grades.
Yeah, 4th and 5th grade.
4th and 5th grade. We're just going to move them over to the athletic fields that are owned by the town. Just for safety reasons, it's better to do that, and keep them out of there. I did have a meeting with Mr. Keys, the Blackstone Town Administrator. I need to write him a letter requesting a waiving of the building fee. Since the town owns the building, it's like paying yourself. So it's a town building. So I just need to write him a letter, and I just wanted to present it to the committee tonight, and then I'll get that letter in the mail to him tomorrow. I've also met with Bill Walsh, the chair of the Board of Health and Inspectional Services. He's been very helpful, and I've asked the project management company to add him to the list of people that we distribute information, and he's certainly welcome to attend any meetings that we have relative to the project. So I think we're moving forward. We've got the bid openings, dates, we're advertised, and the best estimate at this point is probably to be able to start that project sometime in early October. Early October.
And Carol will have a parent meeting to go through
Yeah.
this in September?
Right, well,
Okay.
she's got back-to-school meetings, so
Okay.
at that point, we'll have a pretty good sense of what is, and, certainly, she will be giving parents an update, and she said that she would be able to communicate with people via email. So again, people will know well in advance what part of the building is being roofed. And as I said, we're anticipating 4 to 6, and we can accommodate. Nobody needs to leave the complex and be relocated to another school. It'll all happen right there.
That's awesome.
At the complex. And again, flexibility on the part of the teachers, they're being appraised of the situation, and I'll meet with the faculty, with Carol the first day of school. I'll go down to their faculty meeting and talk about that. I don't want to minimize it. It will be noisy, it will be messy, but it's not unhealthy or unsafe to roof that building in this way, and to move around. But if you take enough precautions, we'll be able to move forward, all right? And let's hope we have no snow before Thanksgiving.
Right.
That's all good news.
Yeah.
And you did say that the contractor will be responsible for covering the
It's in the
costs.
specifications that the
Perfect.
contractor is responsible for covering and cleaning.
Okay.
Now, I don't want to mislead anybody.
No, but
Contractor's idea of cleaning is not white glove, but we will hold them accountable to the standards. I have to be honest, I've had experience with building projects over my career. It all depends on who is the lowest bidder, all right? But the project management company is very experienced, Arcadis, and they know who these people are, and they represent you, they're the owner's project manager, so it's their job to make sure that people follow the specifications, make sure that they follow the specifications, all right? Maury Wolf has been very helpful. I do have to acknowledge to the committee that Mr. Gould has been the person kind of holding this together, and he's been extremely helpful to me getting up to speed on the project, and he and I have been working together at these meetings, but I will take over with the project planning meetings, and but I'm grateful for his involvement in the project. And I apologize that the community thought it was going to be done this summer. I mean, that just wasn't in the cards because of the process. I do that.
One thing, Dr. Davis, I'd just like to make sure that communication is critical
Yep.
to the staff.
Yes.
Because we know things are going to change.
Right.
And
Yep.
I think they're willing to accept that. Just the earlier we can
Oh.
let them know when things change.
That's
and-
why we're going to invite a faculty member in addition to the principal to be part of the planning team.
Yep, perfect.
So, and again, the OPM, the planning is 2 weeks ahead. It's not like they come in and say, oh, we're going to go there tomorrow. No, that's not allowed. The specifications are very tight, and the last thing the roofing company wants to do, is quite frankly to run into a problem on the job. So the reality is, there will be a notice. Now, in any project, there are always unforeseen conditions, and, people, we all have to be aware of that and be prepared to deal with it. And the OPM will have a representative on site for all of the roofing tasks. So it's not a matter of Carol being responsible for that. And I've made it clear to the OPM that Carol's in charge of that building. If she sees a safety problem, it's her call to say stop. And when she says stop, it has to stop, all right, to do that. So we're hoping that we get a sufficient number of bidders, and the pricing comes in appropriately, and we're under budget, and we're able to move forward with that, all right? Any questions?
Okay. But during public forum, you'll be able to ask. Okay. It's right after the next section we're at. Okay.
Oh,
You don't have agenda, Russ?
we do it electronically, I'm sorry. Okay. I didn't bring extras, my apologies. Next time I'll bring a few extras. All right. Where am I? Oh, the update on the high school roof, all right? The high school roof, as some of you are aware, we are trying to resolve the funding issue that presented. Funding has been approved by a vote in Millville, but it's the way that it happened. The strategy that Mr. Gould attached to your memo is what is called special legislation, which would allow for it to be corrected without having to reconvene a town meeting in Millville. Representative Kevin Kuros is working on the bill. It's in its third reading in what is called the steering committee in the House. His chief of staff, Joseph Zarella, called me this week, and the bill is moving forward. I said second reading, it's now in third reading. And they're optimistic that it'll come for a vote. The problem is the House is in what's called informal session, so these things can move quickly or they can move slowly, but he really did feel that there were a number of these pieces of special legislation, and he's hoping it's going to come out shortly. The next then is to then go to the Senate, and again, Mr. Gould has contacted Senator Richard Moore's office. They're aware of the bill, they're aware of it, and he did not see in the Senate side that there would be any slowdown. So we're optimistic that hopefully by our next school committee meeting, this issue's been resolved, and then we can move forward with the regional project. What that does mean is that probably, more than likely, the high school will not be roofed until late spring, early summer. Because we can go out to bid, but we do not roof a building like that in the winter. So we've lost that window of opportunity, and it will be probably pushed back to late spring or early summer. All right? We'll know better when they do the final specifications and bid documents, okay? Because right now, we don't have the money to go forward with that. Okay. The next item is the Millville Elementary School drinking water. I was notified by the town of Millville that the water quality test results for what is referred to as the drinking water or potable water came back, and we have a problem. So Millville has called a meeting for next Monday night at the Millville Elementary School at 6:30. I will attend that meeting. Ms. Desai will be there, and would really encourage a couple members of the regional committee to be there so that we can hear from their consultant as to what is the problem and how to proceed. The reality for us to open that school is we have to have potable water in the building, and therefore, based on Monday's meeting, I will more than likely call Belmont Springs to expand the contract of providing potable water at the school. That would become a school committee expense. It's not in the budget, but we need to find out, what are the options to address the water issue and move forward. So we'll know more information next Monday, and certainly, I think, Erin, you said that you would be there?
Yes.
I plan on going as
Great,
well. from
okay, meet you there. Any questions? I think this has been an old item. For me, it's new, but, yeah, okay. All right. The next item, Mr. Chairman, is the update on the Millville roof project. I'm working with Harold Gould again and talking with our contact person at MSBA, Mr. Thomas Kosmouski. We have a submission on September 4th of some documents to get in the pipeline for approval by the MSBA for, lost the date, I didn't bring it with me. I believe it's their January board meeting. All right, so Mr. Gould has got most of those documents completed, and the one document that I needed from Millville I called. We need a certified copy of the minutes of the selectmen's vote to give us the $35,000 for the initial design. So we're in good shape. We will get that documentation in probably the end of next week to MSBA, and then we will move forward with the project. Again, this project will probably, because we have to then go back to the town when we know the estimate of what it's going to cost. So that issue has to be crossed. Once the MSBA approves it, we have 90 days. The town has 90 days to come up with the funding, which will push it into their Springtown meeting, which will push the roof project hopefully into the late summer or early fall. Right?
So we've been approved to move forward with MSBA.
We've been approved to be invited into the program. There are 5 documents that we need to provide MSBA for the MSBA board to vote on it.
And that happens in January.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, and January's good because that's a 90-day clock, which then gets us in the window of Millville Town Meeting, or a vote, or an election, all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But again, that would mean, when they vote the bigger number, then they have to go back to the process that the Blackstone complex went through, that the design documents then have to be developed 60%, and then they're turned over to a commissioning agent, and it's going to take time to do it, all right? The one thing, we're working with an architect and a OPM on the high school and the Blackstone project, but we don't get to pick the architect and the OPM. It probably will not be the current architect that we're working with or the current OPM. They pick it. It's a list in terms of where we are, okay? The next item on the agenda is to call to your attention some budget transfers that need to be done.
You want a motion to put you in, there was something in the notes, a motion to put you in charge of the roof project, or did you do that?
Oh,
Millville, motion to move you to appoint.
yes. I'm sorry, thank you.
Well, I'll make that motion
Thank
to
you.
appoint you to the interim,
Yeah.
this interim,
Right.
as the Blackstone
Now,
Millville
that's one of the
Regional.
things that I have to
Millville
submit,
Elementary.
is a copy of the minutes that I've been appointed to do that.
Okay.
Thank
Okay,
you.
motion made by Kathy.
Second.
Seconded by Diane. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Superintendent of roofs. Better than superintendent of sewers.
Kim had the pleasure.
Then, the next item is a request for budget transfers. The first item concerns the literacy professional development. This was a project that I believe the committee was aware of, and now it's a matter of finding the money to do it. So I have a recommended motion here to move the money from a revolving account for what is called Teachers of Student Services. It's really the preschool program. As a revolving account, there's money in that account. What in effect we are doing is, the current budget is paying for that staff. You can have the revolving fund pay for that staff, and therefore it frees up the money from that line item, which then can go over to the line items listed to create the money available for the literacy program. And so the only thing I called to your attention, and I listed it here, I discussed with your financial advisor, James Eggert, you know, that you are taking money out of a revolving account. It's like a bank account. There's no money going back in, other than the money we collect this year for that program. So you are spending out money, and we're going to, when we address the budget, it's going to show like, wow, how come we're having to increase that budget, all right? So.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Buckley.
I move that it approve the transfer of salaries for student services Millville to the preschool revolving fund for fiscal 14, and to transfer the total sum of $56,254 to the budget line items listed to cover the expense of Foundations Learning Program for the 13-14 school year.
So motion by Mr. Buckley is read. Is there a
Second.
second? Second by Wendy Greenstein. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 The next is a special education budget transfer to take money from a teacher assistant salary line item. We had a late resignation, a position that we didn't fill, to go back into a supply account for special education, which was inadequately funded. I mean, we're obligated to do these things. And I did meet with Donna Scungio this afternoon, and we haven't quite fixed the total problem, but this will help address that issue.
Meaning more money maybe.
Yeah,
needed.
there's, unfortunately, we're going to have to find more money.
In this position, it wasn't warranted? Did somebody move out and was?
Somebody, I believe, retired, left, and they decided they didn't need to fill that position,
Okay.
okay? So fortunate for us, you know, was, and there may be money, I just want to really say this, I'm still getting a handle on the overall budget, but what's in the line items is inadequate. And you know, that's an issue I just want to address. So the motion's there for the committee?
I'll make a motion that we move from the FY14 budget line item, special education teacher assistant, the sum of $18,300 to the special education supplies and materials line item.
Motion is read by Aaron. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Diane Robin. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ne-
Mr. Chairman, can I just say, I really like seeing these transfers this way. In the past, we've done them and not been as transparent with them. Well, I don't think we were hiding it, it just, we never officially read it on, and I really like this. I
Okay.
think that's going to help with our budgeting.
If I can, only the school committee is authorized to transfer money, so it has to come to your attention. I'm not going to bring to you an account that's out of balance by $50. I'm really kind of using a threshold of about $500. Now, every quarter, we'll do a reconciliation for you, but, you know, when Donna says to me, it's over by, you know, like today, she said, there's one account that's over by $102. Do you want to do a transfer? I said, let me talk to the committee. That one, that type of a transfer, we could do quarterly. Big ones, yeah, you're going to hear from me on the big ones. But, you know, if they're over by, you know, under $500, we'll do that on a quarterly reconciliation.
I think this will help us in our budget development for next year.
Yeah.
To know exactly
Absolutely.
what we need.
Thank you.
It also makes me feel better that I'm
Makes me feel
Paying the
better, too.
bills.
doing it legally.
Tighten it up.
The next item is a bus issue, and I met with the bus company, the Telstone family, on the buses, and I attached the information. We have currently one bus route that by adding the pickup for the boys' club,
Boys and Girls
overlo-
Club?
yeah, overloads the bus. All right? The elementary buses can hold 73 kids, 3 to a seat. When that number, you know, not everybody's there every day, so if it's 75, that's not an issue, but he's got one bus that now was pushing 90, and that's a problem. However, Nadine reported to me on our extended, she's got about 7 students that were formerly in the Boys Club that are now coming to our extended day program. So I'm not sure, you know, how much of an emergency this is right now, all right? What the Neil Telstone and Clayton Telstone, they have a bus at the middle and high school that's not being used at the elementary. So he's got a bus, he's got a driver, but if we wanted to address this issue, we would have to, you know, we would have to add another $90 a day, which is like $16,200 to cover that. There are some other buses that are significantly below the 70, but the way your town is configured, it's nigh on impossible without getting somebody on a bus for a long ride, you know, to pick in and do it. The number that he gave me is that the Boys and Girls, is it Boys and Girls or just boys?
Boys and Girls
Boys and
Club.
Girls Club, had a number in, like 53 was their max number. I have not reached out to the Boys and Girls Club, but that's a big tippy number on a bus. But he did check with them, and B6, you know, would be problematic. But,
So out of that 90, is that, that's obviously with the 55 that they have there?
right, and it's all not 100% verified at this point, because you never know until they show up the first day. But obviously, and we're really, it's an elementary run, so the Main Street to the complex, we're talking about a mile. You know, it's not like they're on the bus, you know, for that time. So I don't have experience with it, so
That
I
would be
really.
another question that I would have, because we were talking about other changes that might have impacted busing, and we were told there was no mileage charges for busing. So being that the Boys and Girls Club is almost a hop, skip, and a jump
Yeah.
from, I mean, would it be possible to have the bus leave the school and,
Go back.
you know, no,
Second
start,
trip for them?
even if it's a bus for the other side of Blackstone, they're still, they have to
one
leave
way.
the school in one of those directions, so.
So the bus would be
with
dropping their
50
load off,
Right.
and then going to the Boys Club, picking that, and then driving right back.
Because that's where he gets you, though, he gets you
No.
for the second.
No, I'm saying the bus with 42, bus 5. I know they're coming from another direction, but they're still on the way to the school and leaving
Not
the
that
school.
far.
That Boys and Girls Club is
Right.
on the route.
Well,
I'm just saying,
I don't know the routes, so I really have to defer, to them. They seem very sincere. Remember, by allowing somebody to be picked up at a daycare, you're actually putting multiple seats in the mix.
Right.
Because some of those children don't go every day, so it's not like you can minus them off another bus. You're actually doubling them up. You have to count that child twice. And
Or
that's,
students that are just going to the Boys and Girls Club after school,
Yeah.
you're loading that bus
Correct.
after school, so it's double, it's double.
and that's, because you have to do your head count, and you recognize the bus has a limit of how many students can be on it. So,
Can we reach out to the Boys and Girls Club and ask, are these 5 days a week, or, to count those numbers?
I need people to
or-
kind of share with me what is the understanding. I don't find a document that talks about this. It's certainly true, there's another daycare facility on Federal Street.
Right.
That's not a problem, in terms of numbers, because of Federal Street. It's not a problem, so they can accommodate that, and there aren't as many children there. So they can accommodate that one, but the number at the Boys and Girls Club, I don't know what the school committee practice has been on this, allowing this to happen.
I know in our district that wherever you get picked up, it's the same place every day. Wherever you get dropped off, the same, there's no going to CCD or your friend's birthday party, and you can't bus jump, and that's the purpose of that whole thing, to say, wherever you picked up every morning, it's that same spot. Wherever you dropped off every afternoon, it's that same spot. So it kind of controls your numbers.
I'm asking for guidance because I honestly don't know.
I mean, historically,
Practice
I know
has
when
been-
my kids took the bus, we were that last stop after the Boys and Girls Club. And the first couple of weeks of school, kids are standing in the aisles, and parents are saying, my kid's not going on that bus. I was one of them. And then it evens out, after a couple of days. I don't know if they add a bus or what.
Well, I don't think we've added a bus, but I think what has happened is that we've kind of worked with Telstones, Telstone, the contractor, to maybe make some other minor adjustments. Now, there's more than one bus coming up Mendon Street during going to the elementary.
Right.
Now, whether or not that one is completely full or not, I don't know. So maybe we have to, and I believe we make them walk out to
Main Street.
Main Street.
Yeah.
So, I mean, certainly, if the first bus can take part of the run, and the second bus gets the others, I know that they almost come up in tandem most mornings.
Three.
2 or 3,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So there's probably almost 3 bites of the apple you've got there. We can't afford to just add
No.
another bus, and this is always an issue. And then it kind of settles this thing out. So I think really I guess, is Keith
Keith has agreed to be bus coordinator
Okay.
again, thank goodness.
we need to kind of just work with them to make sure that, we're also don't have underutilized buses. We always in the past made them go to 83 passenger for that very reason. Our enrollment historically is lower.
Yep.
So we should be able to absorb
Right,
this.
right. It should
I
work.
didn't
somehow.
add up all the numbers there, but actually, it's a breathtaking thing to see in the first day or even the first week of school, the amount of parents that drop off their children, even all year long, going into Mendon Street.
Right.
But anyway, be that as it may, I would hope that we can just maybe work with him to,
My
See if
sense
that-
of the committee is that this accommodation for the Boys Club, you want to continue that, but we're going to see if we can do it in a way without increasing the cost of the bus routes.
Absolutely.
If on the other hand, somebody made the suggestion that they could loop a bus, they drop off, and then they scoot back down to Main and grab, there might be a small charge for that? Is that, something I
We
can
were
talk to
told
them
there
about?
was no extra charge for mileage. We were talking about
for mileage, but
dropping
that
at
is-
one
that-
school and then continuing on to another.
That's a little bit of a misnomer. There isn't a mileage charge. In other words, the route is set. If you look at the contract, you say, okay, Route 1, starts at Providence Street in Millville and goes X, Y, and Z. And then that's bid separately. But it's the looping thing. So in other words, they're actually making a double loop. Now, in the past, there was there was a process that, there were loops on the elementary, and then when we did away with that, as enrollment declined, there was kind of, and savings. So if you start to add that in there, they're probably gonna,
Charge.
I see there's 2 buses in particular with 42. There's room for the kids, so
you
find
don't
a way
know,
But
they
to.
again,
could be, they could be
these-
coming off of Rathbun
Right,
Street and
and
coming
no
up
idea.
Farm.
Yeah, he said that, unfortunately, the low ones, they're covering another part of the town, and that's not, they don't go by Main Street. That would be easy if it did. And it is a matter of accommodating. I mean, the further out in the community, that's the problem. It's not a,
Did he mention bus 10 at all being a problem? If it's bus 6, that's the Boys and Girls Club.
no, it was Bus 6, the Boys and Girls Club.
So bus 10 has more?
Um,
Is that accurate?
I think he was going to deal with that internally. Yeah.
I think it's worth,
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I think it's worth a discussion with him. If
Oh.
there's 3 buses coming up Mendon Street, and they have a discussion with the Boys and Girls Club saying your kindergarten first and second are gonna get on B6, and your 3, 4, and 5 are gonna get on this
Three
bus. What
lines.
can be done, with what we have, and split those up with the Boys and Girls Club? I think it's worth a discussion.
I certainly
Okay.
think that's the way to go. And if we do need to add a bus, I think we probably wouldn't need to add a bus every day. Maybe Monday's their big day or something like that.
Yeah, I don't,
You'd never know, though.
Or ask for that option too about how much it would cost for that second trip, versus
Since it's
the,
so close.
because it's so.
But I would reach out to the Boys and Girls Club too and see what their enrollment is per day to see if they have that data.
well, let me schedule a meeting with Neil Tellstone and with Keith, and let's see what we can come up with. But my sense of the committee is we're trying not to spend the big dollars.
Right.
Right.
We're trying to accommodate within the bus loop, or if need be, maybe a quick loop to grab the kids and bring them up that mile and a half, to which he might say, okay, that's going to cost you $20 a day. I don't know. Okay? Let me get back to, I really do need input because I don't know these communities, but when I stand in front of a map, you are one of those communities that in some cases, the buses have to go actually out of state
Get in, yeah.
to loop and get back up and around.
Right.
And,
And those are long rides.
yeah,
You
they're
don't wanna
long
even
rides,
touch
that's what he's pointing
that
out.
situation.
Yeah.
Now, is the enrollment for our preschool, the before and after-school program, is that closed, or is it?
Oh, it's open, wide open.
It's well open,
Yeah.
so some parents may still
Yeah.
opt to put them in that,
Yeah, the
rather than
number-
boys and girls, and if that comes down 8 or 10 people, problem's out.
Correct, yeah.
It means nothing.
And those are the unknowns
Okay.
at this point. Those are the unknowns. But obviously, we can't allow an unsafe bus
Right.
Oh,
to deal
exactly.
with that. Okay? Okay, the next is school choice. So we can report to you that Mr. Dudek has reviewed and approved 3 high school students, 1 at grade 9, 1 at grade 11, and 1 at grade 12, to attend the high school under school choice. I don't know how many are going out at this point, but we know we have 3 coming in.
Do we ask them, just out of curiosity, do we ask them what's bringing them to the district? Just out of, what's bringing them?
You are a school choice school, and therefore...
Right, but if they say they like, they
They
like
have football
our-
now.
Right, or something like that.
They like
just
the
out of-
band, they like
Band,
whatever.
so-
yeah.
I don't know.
He interviewed him, he may know that.
Yeah.
It would be nice to check with the
Piggyback
people
that.
choosing
The
out.
charming personality of the acting, or the interim superintendent, I'm sure that.
He did interview them. I said, please interview them. You remember the rules of school choice, though. Once you say you're a school choice school, you really can't discriminate on
Right.
somebody coming in. It's just, it's very important, particularly at the high school, that the principal explain the rules. So if there's a question of academic standing, they need to know that when they come in here in school choice, they're subject now to the rules here,
Right.
not their former school, relative to promotion. You can't tell me you're in 10th grade when you didn't pass all your courses in 9th grade. The transcript comes, the principal says you're in 9th grade, not 10. And that's why you interview, so that people understand that.
Right.
Okay. The next item is a request from Cassie Foley, a member of the faculty at the high school, I believe? No? High school? for a
She's a, I
Art
think,
teacher.
elementary art.
Yeah,
elementary. I don't know
Yeah.
these people, so I defer.
She used to be reading.
Okay. And this is, I talked to the chair, this is a matter, what I would suggest is that I just acknowledge that it was presented to the committee and send her a letter to that effect. Okay. The next item is the BICO Collaborative. Collaboratives, as you know now, the regulations changed. The committee actually has to take a vote to appoint me to be your representative to serve on the BICO Collaborative for the 2013-2014 school year.
So moved.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any questions, discussion? All those in favor, so by saying aye.
Aye.
I took my online collaborative board member online course and I passed, so I now have a certificate to be on the collaborative as well. So that's done. And the next item, just to call to your attention, is on the charter school amendment. We've been notified by the Department of Education that the Benjamin Franklin Classical Charter School has submitted an amendment. They want to go from maximum enrollment of 450 to 900, and the catchment area is expanded into Blackstone and Millville and other towns in the Blackstone Valley. So I want to review the impact, and I would suggest we put it on our agenda for the first meeting in September so that we can submit something to the Department of Education. I'm concerned about, as I said, enrollment, capacity, and what impact if we were to lose students to the charter school.
Do we know what age groups?
Right now, the charter school is a K to 8.
K to 8.
Yeah, the document that I got from the Department of Education just talked about an increasing enrollment and expanding the towns, adding Bellingham, Blackstone, Millville, Holliston, Hopedale, Medway, Mendon, Upton, Millis, Milford, Norfolk, Plainville, Walpole, Rentham to the region served. So I didn't tell me whether or not they were going to a high school. Okay. So I'll have that back on the agenda, and I'll be meeting with some of the area superintendents. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have under the superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you. Our second public forum. So if anyone in the audience would like to come and address the school committee, now would be the opportunity to do that. I just ask that you, when you come up, state your name and where you're from, and
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me. My name's Russ Wells. I'm the chairman of the Finance Committee in Blackstone.
Yes, I am Adrienne Nicoloro. I live at 16 Ascension Street. I am a member of the Finance Committee, but I also have a daughter at the JFK Elementary School, and she travels on Bus 5.
My main purpose coming tonight was purely financial, to find out if the delay had any effect on the bonds that were voted on at town meeting. Mr. Gould had mentioned that at all. You didn't actually discuss that, so.
Oh, I'm sorry. The actual bond for the elementary project has already been let, and we got a very favorable rate, much less than we thought.
Great.
I'm gonna say 55 basis points. We thought it was gonna be 65, and it came in at 55, so I believe it was Eastern Bank bid on that. So yes, the bond did not hold up the bond. That money's been borrowed, and fine. The high school project has not been borrowed.
It's not been borrowed.
Has not been borrowed, no.
So the delay had, if anything, had a positive effect on getting a better interest rate.
There were two bidders for the bonds, and it came in lower than we thought, so the market is still quite low. Quite low.
That was my main purpose in coming, just from a layman's point of view. I had a few questions on your presentation.
Sure.
And I know Andrea, we have, and Steve, another member of our committee's here as well, Steve Goodrow. You mentioned 4 to 6 classrooms at a time. And this might be technical, you may not know. Is that normal? Was that going to create additional seams in the roof you normally wouldn't have?
I honestly can't answer that. That is technical, but the strategy is roofers do not want to expose the building to water penetration, so they only rip as much as they can adequately put down and seam. So they work within the design of the building. As you know, it's a single-story sloping,
Sure.
so that's why it's sometimes going to be 4, and sometimes it might be 6. It depends on the run of the building. That's what I'm told. And-
Has there been an asbestos study done already?
Yes, that was part of the design. There is no asbestos. Now, I want to qualify that. All of the testing that was done indicates no asbestos.
Well, that's
But-
amazing, at a
but-
structure this old. Usually you find it somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
So, that's never to say that when you rip something off, but based on the testing that they did and the AHIRA reports on that building was principally a wood beam construction building.
Yeah.
And this tongue and groove board, used at that particular time. No, there is no indication of asbestos, but,
Usually you find it in the glue,
yeah.
or putting down
Yes.
something on something else in that era. It's not
Yeah.
so much the material, it's how you glue something. That's usually where you find it.
Yeah, the old built-up tar and gravel felt roofs used to have sometimes asbestos in it, but that's long gone from that building in previous projects,
Right.
so, no.
You mentioned that starting early October.
Mm-hmm.
When do you think, if all goes as planned, when do you think, how long will it take?
They're estimating that the job would be 10 weeks to be roofed. That doesn't mean complete, because then they go back and do a lot of the flashing and stuff
Right.
around, but the actual roof rip and put down, would be in that time frame, barring, weather conditions. And,
Right. Which is a big variable, that's,
Yeah. but the game plan would be that 10 weeks would get us in,
right.
basically, around the Thanksgiving holiday. And the contractor has the options of working on Saturdays.
Right.
All right.
One other thing, in kind of my previous life, I used to be involved with real estate and construction. Most construction companies aren't very good cleaners. But we used to require them to hire a cleaning company.
That's what the specifications call for.
Yeah.
That's in the specs. Yeah.
That's in the
Hire a
specs.
cleaning company that does it for a
Right.
living to come in
Yeah.
and clean what they left, because usually, as you said, they're not, they don't do cleaning for a living, so.
The specifications, it's in the general specifications for the general contractor, which would be the primary roofing contractor. The common practice is they don't let roofers clean, they generally sub it out.
Exactly.
But it's not, we don't pick that person. We just hold them to the specs, and the specs will be very
The
clear.
other elephant is, what's Plan B for BMR in the winter with snow?
That's the exposure, that we have, to be honest. I walked the building the second week here, and it was pointed out to me where we've had histories of water penetration. That's going to be continued to
Did
be
we
a
get up there
problem.
and shovel last year?
I don't
Like
believe
we did
had
on
a shovel. I
JFK?
don't believe we did shovel.
We didn't? No?
Yeah, the roof is different at the high school.
Right.
All right. The weight, the load bearing is different. It's not a load bearing problem at the high school.
The leakage.
But shoveling is always not the best option,
Mhm.
because putting added, digging on it can only create more problems to do that. But, yes, that's,
You're gonna need, we'll need, if it's that, if it's
so
this
to be
big, we're
honest,
gonna-
when I walked the building, I asked, because, as most people know, we had a fairly large amount of rain this spring and summer, and it was just where they thought the leaks were. So from a standpoint, now, ice and snow are two different things, but at least by the heavier rain, there were no unexpected areas.
I mean, just to be clear, because I don't want to confuse the public that are watching it. At JFK, we had a structural issue with snow.
Yes.
Here, it's just leaks, there's no structural issue.
Correct.
with that building,
Yeah.
so.
And the structural issues are being corrected in this new roofing project.
Right.
The snow load weight will be increased, and the pitch will allow that snow to roll off quicker, which is part of the design.
And I guess we have to wait for the legislature to come back.
Yes. Yes.
to-
We're this close, Russ.
The last action, Russ, was went to third reading on the 15th.
Yeah.
And I think that was their last informal session, so I
Do
would.
we need a
think
governor's
about that.
signature?
Yes.
To end it all?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it'll probably move pretty quickly in the Senate. But I don't think they're back until after Labor Day.
Yeah, they're not back until after Labor Day, so. And until that's done, we can't,
Unfortunately, the problem is, without that corrective, the bond council cannot certify the bonds.
Right.
So we can't present them for bid, because if we have a technical problem, bond council can't sign off on it.
we're not going to have to come back to town meeting, you know.
It-
This will
Highly
this will
unlikely.
eliminate
Highly
any need for a
unlikely.
town meeting. But,
Yeah.
I mean, the issue is the Millville certification. It's the Blackstone certification's fine.
Right.
It's just the sister town.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay. I
So-
know you had some
And we'll
questions.
we'll keep you appraised of that. I mean, as I said to the committee, I really expect that I should be able to report to people at the next school committee that that matter has been resolved. There's been no opposition to this, and we are one of about 100 pieces of special legislation, so, you know, our little bill is not sitting by itself, it's sitting with a lot of other little tidy-ups.
And there's no money attached to it, so
Yeah,
it's just,
it-
you know.
Well, as
it's just waiving a technicality.
Chairman and I discussed, I was hoping that we attempted to have both of you attend our Finance Committee meeting this month, and we weren't able to do so. I'm hoping next month for the Finance Committee, and you could obviously meet our Finance Committee and some of our government officials and the public in Blackstone. I cordially invite both of you to attend and give an update on our meeting in the 9th. I know you have, you had.
Yes, I did. They're less involved with Finance Committee, more involved as a concerned parent. Because the roof project was supposed to be completed over the summer, we didn't have,
Yeah,
I didn't have this concern, but listening to this now, my concern is, will these crews have access to the inside of the building?
All of the crews will be quarried to get criminal offender records information. They can't be on the job site without that. They will have their own porta potties outside.
Okay.
And if they enter the building, they will have to come in with the OPM, and they will be given a special visitor's badge.
Okay.
And they would be escorted around the building.
Okay.
The roofers know very clearly, you know, when they're working on a public school, that all of their workers have to go through that quarry process. And again, we talked with Carol Brown, you know, we will design special badges, but the OPM would come in. Again, you know, it all depends, you know, if the plumber needs to come in and attach a drain, you know, obviously, you know, that's not in, the drains at that school are not in classrooms, they're in the hallways or common areas to do that. But the protocol would be clearly, they don't come in and out of the building, and they don't want to be perfectly honest. They're gonna be staged, they're gonna have their own porta potty, and, you know, unless it's critical for them to come in, but we will know in advance that they need to come in, and they would be escorted in with the OPM.
Okay, so then you would be able to verify that the workers that are on site are the workers that have been quarried?
Yes, that's part of
And
this
the only reason why I
specification.
mention this is
Yeah.
because I recently had a personal experience
Yeah.
doing some work on my home, where the company told me that they were criminal background checked, but then they subcontracted and a whole new crew came in, and they weren't, when I point blank asked the foreman. So, you know, from my perspective, I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
that's a process, but also that there's a verification. So, because, you know, sometimes two
It's a
crews
fair
can
question.
change.
It's a very fair question.
So I appreciate that.
As with any job, there would be deliveries to the job site with companies.
Yes.
But again, they would have no reason to be in the building, but they would be on site dropping off material.
Sure.
But the workers that are actually doing the job have to go through a quarry process, and the strategy, if they need to come in the building, which again, is not necessary, the cleaning crew is the one that, you know, yeah, that's the one that would be coming in, and that's the one that we would, once we know how they're gonna do it, you know, look at their quarries, but
But they most likely would be coming in after hours, I would imagine.
No, they probably would be coming in, but they'd be going only to that area where students are not. The students would not be in those rooms where they're being cleaned, because they come in after. But
Okay.
we would have their quarry information, and they would be given our ID tags, you know, so the staff would know. And the architect thought, that, you know, given that amount, you're probably talking about a crew of 2 to 3 people, because obviously, you know, manpower's money, and the contractor's gonna, you know, just go with a small number of people. But yes, we will be very aware of who's on the site, and we will be very aware of where they are in the building.
You had also said that the project would probably last for about 10 weeks. I was wondering what the hours, would it be consistent throughout the school day?
The
That they'll
roofers.
be working?
The roofers will start at 7 o'clock. And most of the heavy ripping will happen in that first 2 hours, so probably, you know, the students won't be there. I mean, the faculty, you know, will be coming in earlier. but they want to get that roofing, they want to rip in the morning, and then they would be putting down. And their hours, approximately would be 7 to 3.
Okay.
But, again, weather conditions, they could be staying later. And as I mentioned, common areas will be done on Saturdays. It's
Okay.
just, it's just easier to do a kitchen when we're not trying to cook a meal.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
Something totally off the roof side. You mentioned the 40 new teachers. How many total teachers do we have in the system?
I don't know that. I haven't,
Ballpark?
I honestly don't know.
I'm curious what the
Yeah.
turnover rate
I-
is.
Yeah.
I don't know, I have a ballpark, which I think was when we were earlier in the spring, it was
Yeah.
in the low 200s, or
I-
150? It was very, that's very ballpark.
225, I heard that number at one point.
At the high school, it's a large number.
I think it's more like 150,
With
I
those
think, but I don't know what's
experienced
the 40.
members, is that, what's typical? Is that much higher? A little bit higher than normal?
It's probably higher than normal, but there also were several retirements, so that kind of skews it somewhat. Probably the summertime ones are a bit of a concern, that's why I kind of brought it up. But not unusual, not totally unusual. We have lost, some staff members, especially due to location. Maybe they live around Boston, and
Right.
this is kind of like their first or second stop on the trail, and something opens up that's closer. But I think if you really look at the names, looking at the published names, there were a significant amount that retired, and
So that skews it.
yeah, and then I think Dr. Davis, Dr. Davis, you could also add that we talked about the retirement planning there when they, when MTRB came into vein, and when they changed the, contribution rates, folks that in the late 50s now have hit their magic number where they can go at their, whatever, the most, their.
Yes, plus the age.
Yeah, it's the 80%, the 80%. So you have some folks that might have stayed till 62 or 3 or even later. They maybe now going closer to 60, or a little bit less. So there's a few of
The head
those in that.
football coach, I think, moved back closer to.
Correct.
And that's the same thing with anything. It's, the coaching, especially a new program like that. It's that's kind of short money as far as the salary goes. So he's gonna find something,
Sure.
in a bigger school or.
But our athletic director also got into the position of assistant principal in Hopedale. We added positions as well. I mean, we made a conscious decision in May and June in the budget season to add teachers in almost every elementary grade. So that kind of skews it a little bit. But the high school, there was a lot. And I think the two categories that Dr. Davis talked about in terms of, geographics and money,
And youth. I mean, most of the teachers, and again, I can speak more because my office is at the high school, and Mr. Dudek and I have spent a lot of time. We had, as I said, teachers at the high school that had 1 to 3 years' experience, and they are more flexible in picking up and moving. All right? So that it's a blessing and a curse when you hire younger, new teachers, because they have the ability to pick up and move. And it just seemed to be an unusual year.
And they have the ability to pick up and move from us.
Yeah, well, this phenomena is not exclusive to
Right.
this school district, but it is a reality.
Right.
But I do think I would agree that the number at the high school is probably the average. And again, I haven't been here, but Mr. Dudek's only been here 1 year. I think he said last year was like 5, and this year was almost close to 15, so it certainly is a bigger number.
Thank you.
Question?
All right, thank you. So, anyone else? Okay. We're going to move forward to committee forum. So we're going to start over here.
Because I sat there for 5 years, you never started there once.
Been there a few months.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I will just say welcome back to school, everybody. I hate to say that, but good luck in the new school year, and good luck to all the new employees, staff members that started today. And I hope everyone had a great summer. That's it.
I would say the same thing. I'd like to welcome Dr. Davis, and also excited to be a part of the school systems now with my son going in. and look forward to all that it has to offer.
So welcome back to everybody, and I hope they have a great opening day throughout the district, all going well.
So last year, we had a lot of moments of silence to start our meetings. This year, I want to change that trend. So I want to recognize and congratulate Caitlin and Peter Martufi, who just welcomed their baby daughter, Paige Riley Martufi, into the world 2 nights ago.
Awesome.
So Caitlin is a teacher at MES, and don't expect to see her for a little while. So I just wanted to mention that, and let's hope that's a
Congrats.
trend that carries us through this year.
That's great.
Didn't pass by me, but I do echo the welcome backs.
Yeah, welcome back to everyone, and we're looking forward to a good 13-14 school year, and I just want to commend Dr. Davis for his first month on the job, and an outstanding presentation and package that was presented to us for our review before the meeting. Much appreciated. Really gives us a lot of data that I think is essential for us to make good decisions. So I mentioned that to him earlier, and I just wanted to make sure that the folks at home know that we're heading in the right direction, and we're looking forward to the bells ringing in a few days.
Similar vein, I'd like to, welcome Perry. I think this is a very smooth transition, I wouldn't have seen. It's sort of a troubling situation, but I think this part of it has gone reasonably well. Second thing, I went to the fall sports meeting last week, and a lot of people came up to me and they were concerned about the increase in the user fees. And some questions came up. It wasn't discussed at the meeting, but some questions came up about what they should do about applying for a waiver. And I directed them to work it through the principal or their child's coach in a particular sport, or even the club. I know band as well. And I believe the thing we also encouraged them to do is apply for free and reduced lunch, as that was the form, and that's the format that would sort of drive that whole process. And again, what I told as many people as would listen, don't let the user fee keep you from doing the activity. We want you to do the activity, and if you have to apply for a waiver, please do so. Don't let the fee be a barrier.
Actually, can I just piggyback on the user fees, but the new process for registering the students for sports, I thought was, I'm only going through it, this is my last year, but it seemed like it was a really good streamlined to get your data in there. You don't have to continue, you'll just have to kind of check it on the next year. So I don't know whose idea that was, but I thought that worked out pretty good.
And I echo welcoming you, Dr. Davis, to our district, and certainly hit the ground running. I mean, there's a lot of work that we have to do this year, and we have a lot of things on our plate that we have to continue to work on, so I look forward to that, and I welcome everyone back. I'm also a new band parent now, so the marching band, so I'll be going to those. My daughter just went to band camp, and it was the amount of work that they put into that, and the results that they've seen just in a short week was unbelievable. And I don't know if you saw the link as well, but you can also buy BMR athletic gear online now. So it's a nice. I'll have to get rid of my King Philip, and I'll have to get a BMR. So I will certainly look forward to doing that. So with that, I am going to look to a roll call vote to go into.
I just have one thing that I forgot. Just to make sure that if you want to sign up for extended day, that it's open for the extended day for the morning and afternoon. It is a new program, and we're looking forward to seeing, the extended day take off.
And if it hadn't been in the Enlightener, which it probably was, can we get another one in there?
Yeah, it was in the Enlightener, it was in the Valley Breeze. It's also found on our
Social
Facebook
media,
website. It's also found right on the left-hand corner of the homepage as well. So you can just download the paperwork and I believe send it to the JFK.
Great. Good?
Yep.
Okay. So then I'm going to go to a roll
No,
call.
Mr. Chairman, you want to entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of discussing contracts.
So I will entertain a motion to go into executive session to conduct strategy on matters pertaining to a contract of non-union, and that will be a roll call vote, and we will start with you, Kathy.
We will come out for only purposes of adjournment.
We're not going to come out, we're not going to be returned for public session. We won't be
Adjournment
returning.
only,
So we
yeah.
will,
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No, you need a motion first.
So
Oh, I
moved.
make that motion.
Now you need a second.
Second.
Yes.
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 Football game's on. Yes.
unanimous. We will adjourn now and go to executive session.
Lights, camera.